You've had too much already. Nina placed the glass out of reach before the man could touch it again. The lounge was nearly closed. Chairs already turned upside down on several tables. Lights dimmed to half brightness. Only the soft jazz track and the quiet sound of rain tapping against the windows filled the space. The man sitting at the bar did not look like someone accustomed to being refused. His suit was expensive, tailored perfectly, the kind worn by men who usually did not hear the word no. Yet tonight, exhaustion showed through every controlled movement. "Just one more," he said, voice low but strained. "It's been a long night." Nina shook her head politely. "I'm sorry, sir, I can't." He gave a faint, humorless smile and rubbed a hand across his face as if trying to erase the evening. "Please," he said again, quieter now. "Just one more glass, then I'll leave." She hesitated for a second, studying him carefully. His speech was steady, but something about the heaviness in his eyes told her the alcohol was not the real problem tonight. "I can bring you water," she offered. "I don't want water." He exhaled slowly, fingers tightening slightly on the edge of the bar. "Miss, I'm asking you, just one more." Nina had worked enough late shifts to recognize the difference between arrogance and desperation. This was not a man trying to impress anyone. This was a man trying to quiet something inside himself. She poured a very small amount. "One last," she said firmly. He nodded once in gratitude and drank it slowly. When he finished, he did not reach for the glass again. Instead, he closed his eyes briefly, as if gathering the strength to stand. Then he surprised her. "Could you unlock the door?" he asked. Nina frowned slightly. "We're still open. Open the bottle." He gave a faint, tired smile. "Just pour two more. I'll pay for the bottle." "I can't do that," Nina said calmly. He looked at her again, and this time the exhaustion in his face was impossible to hide. "Please," he said quietly. "Just tonight." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nina poured one final half glass. "No more after this," she said. He nodded. Fair enough. He drank slowly. But the alcohol had already done its work. When he tried to stand, his balance failed him. The room seemed to tilt slightly around him. Nina moved quickly as his body leaned forward. He collapsed before reaching the floor. She caught him instinctively, bracing his weight with both arms. He was heavy, solid, but completely drained of strength. "Careful," she murmured. She guided him toward the leather sofa near the wall and helped him lie down. His breathing was steady but slow. Nina went to the kitchen area and returned with a small towel soaked in warm water. She gently wiped his forehead, then his cheek. That was when she saw the bruises clearly. Dark marks along the jaw, a faint cut near the temple, swelling beneath the skin that had nothing to do with alcohol. Her expression changed immediately. Concern replaced professional distance. She wiped carefully around the injury, her voice softer now. "Who did this to you?" The man opened his eyes halfway. For a brief second, something vulnerable crossed his expression. Then it disappeared behind composure. "It's nothing," he said quietly. "Just business." Nina did not believe him. People did not end up with injuries like that from business meetings. She dipped the towel back into the warm water and gently pressed it against his cheek. "You should see a doctor," she said. "No hospitals," he replied immediately. His tone was calm but firm. She studied him again. "Then at least stay here until you feel better," she said. He did not argue. He simply closed his eyes again. The rain continued outside, steady and patient. Nina adjusted the cushion beneath his head and stepped back slightly, giving him space but not leaving completely. Something about the situation felt unusual. Victor woke to the muted sound of ceramic touching wood. The soft clink pulled him from a shallow, restless sleep that felt more like a pause than real rest. For a moment, he did not move. Years of instinct had trained him to assess surroundings before revealing awareness. The air carried the faint scent of coffee and lemon cleanser, the kind used in places that valued cleanliness more than decoration. He opened his eyes slowly. Morning light filtered through the tall front windows of the lounge, pale and diffused by the rain that had not fully stopped during the night. Brooklyn moved differently in the early hours. Delivery trucks passed more frequently than taxis, and conversations on sidewalks sounded purposeful rather than social. He became aware of the blanket folded carefully over his chest. Not a luxury throw, just a clean cotton covering taken from somewhere practical. Victor shifted slightly. the dull ache along his jaw reminding him of the previous night's confrontation. The bruise pulsed with a steady rhythm, but the sharper pain had eased. Whoever had treated the swelling understood how to reduce inflammation without drawing attention. He turned his head. Nina stood near the bar, pouring coffee into a plain ceramic mug. No makeup, hair loosely tied back. The calm efficiency of someone accustomed to early mornings, even after late nights. "You should drink this while it's hot," she said, placing the mug on the low table in front of the sofa. Victor pushed himself into a seated position carefully. His body resisted sudden movement, but discipline helped him ignore discomfort. "You stayed?" he asked. "I open in the mornings sometimes," Nina replied. "And someone needed to make sure you didn't fall off the couch." A faint trace of humor softened the statement, but her tone remained respectful. Victor nodded once. "I appreciate the discretion. You didn't give me much choice," she answered simply. He studied her more carefully in daylight. She did not attempt to ask questions she had no right to ask. She did not pretend indifference either. She behaved like someone who believed kindness did not require permission. Victor lifted the mug. "Black coffee. No sugar. Efficient. You work here alone?" he asked. "Most mornings," she said. "The owner comes in around 10. Victor considered the information. "Then I won't interfere with business." "You're not interfering," Nina replied. "You're recovering." Her choice of words did not escape him. Recovering implied continuation. Victor took a slow sip. The heat steadied him. "You have medical training," he observed. "Some," she said. "You recognize the bruising pattern?" "Yes." She did not elaborate. Victor respected that restraint. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and removed a folded stack of bills, placing it on the table beside the coffee. "For the inconvenience." Nina glanced briefly at the amount. It was excessive. She separated 2 bills and returned the rest. "This covers the drinks and the cleaning supplies I used." Victor did not immediately take the money back. "You could have kept it." "I could have," she agreed, "but I didn't earn it." Her answer was simple, uncomplicated. Victor found himself unexpectedly amused. "Honesty is rare at this hour," he said. "Honesty is rare at most hours," she replied. Outside, a black sedan slowed as it passed the window. Victor noticed. He did not react outwardly, but Nina saw the slight shift in his posture. "You expecting someone?" she asked. "Possibly," he said. That sounded like a yes. Victor set the coffee down carefully. "Miss Harper." "Nina," she corrected. "Nina," he repeated. "If anyone asks whether I was here last night, you did not see me." Her expression did not change, but she did not answer immediately. "That depends," she said calmly. "On what?" "On whether the people asking are dangerous." Victor allowed a small pause. "They can be. And are they dangerous to me?" "No." "You're certain?" "Yes." She studied him for a moment, weighing tone against instinct. "Then I didn't see you," she said. Victor inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement. "You are very composed," he said. "I grew up with a mother who believed panic never solved anything," Nina replied. "Wise woman." She usually was. Victor finished the coffee. The warmth helped focus his thoughts. He stood slowly, adjusting his jacket with careful precision. The movement revealed controlled strength beneath fatigue. Nina noticed the discipline in the gesture. "You should still have that looked at," she said, nodding slightly toward the bruise near his cheek. "It will heal. That depends on whether the situation that caused it is finished." Victor gave the faintest smile. Situations rarely finish cleanly. She did not argue. Instead, she handed him a small sealed envelope. "What is this?" he asked. "Ice packs," she said, "and anti-inflammatory tablets. You keep those here?" "I used to study nursing." "That explains the confidence." "I don't know about confidence," she replied. "I just don't like seeing people in pain when something simple can help." Victor accepted the envelope. "You did more than something simple." "I helped someone who needed help," she answered. "That's all." Victor walked toward the door but paused before leaving. "Nina." "Yes?" "If someone returns asking questions about me, do not answer immediately." "That sounds like advice." "It is." She considered that. "Then let me give you some advice," she said. Victor turned slightly. "Don't drink that much again." A quiet moment passed. Then Victor gave a short nod. "Fair." He stepped outside into the cool morning air. The sedan across the street did not move immediately, but Victor knew they had seen him. He walked without hesitation, posture straight despite the lingering pain. Inside the lounge, Nina watched through the glass only briefly before returning to the counter. She disposed of the used cloth, rinsed the basin, and reorganized the chairs for the morning shift. Routine created stability. Stability created clarity. But as she wiped the table where he had rested his coffee, she noticed something left behind. Only a name embossed in understated lettering. Victor Moretti. Nina turned the card once between her fingers, then placed it carefully inside the drawer beneath the register. She told herself it was only practical. Sometimes customers forgot things. Sometimes strangers passed through quietly. Sometimes nothing more happened. Yet the faint tension in the air remained long after the door had closed behind him. Some people did not bring trouble with them. They brought gravity, and gravity changed everything it touched. If this moment touched you, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. And honestly, if you were in Nina's place that morning, would you have done the same? The answer might not be as simple as it seems. The next evening arrived with the quiet predictability Nina depended on, yet something subtle had shifted beneath the routine. The lounge filled slowly with its usual weekday crowd, older professionals who preferred calm music and measured conversation over loud celebration. A retired accountant sat in his familiar seat near the window reading the financial section of the newspaper, occasionally adjusting his glasses as if the numbers might rearrange themselves if given enough patience. Two sisters in their early 60s shared a bottle of California red wine and discussed the rising cost of prescription medication with the seriousness of people who had learned that small expenses eventually became large ones. Nina moved between tables with steady efficiency, offering refills at the right moment, never interrupting conversations that carried the comfortable rhythm of long familiarity. She appreciated the predictability of these guests. They valued reliability. They understood the quiet dignity of consistent effort. Despite the steady pace of the evening, Nina found herself occasionally glancing toward the door. She told herself she was simply observing the flow of customers, ensuring service remained smooth, yet she was aware of the folded business card resting inside the drawer beneath the register. Victor Moretti. The name carried weight even without explanation. She had resisted the temptation to search online. Experience had taught her that curiosity often invited unnecessary complications. Still, she could not ignore the memory of the bruises or the guarded tone in his voice when he had insisted there be no hospital involved. People who feared hospitals often feared records, and people who feared records usually had reasons connected to power, money, or danger. At 9:15, the rain returned lightly, tapping the windows with a softer persistence than the previous night. Nina wiped the bar counter and refilled a bowl of pretzels for the regular who always ordered ginger ale with lime. The man thanked her by name, as he did every week, and asked whether she had considered finishing her nursing degree. He had asked the same question 3 times in the past month. Nina smiled politely and said she might someday. Older customers often enjoyed encouraging younger people toward stability. They spoke as if consistency itself were a form of wisdom. The bell above the door chimed again. Nina looked up automatically. This time, Victor did not appear alone. A tall man in a charcoal overcoat entered first, scanning the room with subtle precision before stepping aside. Victor followed, posture composed, expression controlled, the faint discoloration along his jaw now partially concealed but still visible to anyone who knew where to look. Nina noticed the difference immediately. He was no longer carrying the heaviness of alcohol. He moved with deliberate confidence, the kind that came from habit rather than effort. Yet the bruise remained, a reminder that whatever conflict had touched his life had not disappeared overnight. Victor approached the bar with a small nod of recognition. Nina acknowledged him with professional neutrality, neither overly familiar nor distant. The man in the overcoat remained near the entrance, positioning himself where he could see both Victor and the exit without appearing obvious. Nina had seen body language like that before in emergency departments, when family members hovered protectively near loved ones awaiting surgery. Vigilance carried its own quiet signature. "Good evening," Victor said. "Good evening," Nina replied. "Coffee or something stronger?" "Coffee tonight." She poured the coffee without comment. Victor placed payment on the counter immediately, avoiding any suggestion of expectation or privilege. Nina noticed the deliberate respect in the gesture. People accustomed to control rarely offered it voluntarily. "You look better," she said simply. "I had assistance," Victor replied. "Ice helps more than people think," she said. I followed your instructions, he acknowledged. A brief pause settled between them. Victor seemed to weigh whether conversation would complicate or clarify matters. Nina did not press him. She had learned that trust often formed in the spaces where silence was allowed to remain unbroken. You kept the card, Victor said quietly. I kept something someone forgot, she answered. Most people would have searched the name immediately. Most people enjoy complications, Nina replied. And you don't? I prefer solutions. Victor regarded her for a moment, measuring intention rather than words. Something in her answer appeared to confirm a decision he had already been considering. He reached into his coat pocket and placed a small, sealed envelope beside the coffee. This is not payment, he said before she could refuse. Consider it reimbursement for medical supplies. Nina did not open the envelope. She placed it calmly beside the register. If it covers supplies, I will accept it, she said. If it buys silence, it's unnecessary. Victor's expression softened slightly. Your silence was never in question. The man near the door shifted position subtly, scanning outside as a car passed. Nina noticed again the protective awareness surrounding Victor. Whatever his profession, it required precaution. Are you safe? She asked quietly. Victor's eyes lifted to meet hers. The question was direct but not intrusive. It reflected concern without curiosity. For now, he answered. That doesn't sound permanent. Very little is permanent, he said. Nina nodded once. Then don't ignore injuries next time. He allowed the faintest trace of a smile. You assume there will be a next time. I assume patterns repeat unless someone changes them. Victor absorbed the statement carefully. Advice offered without expectation often carried more weight than instruction. Why nursing? He asked after a moment. I like fixing problems that can actually be fixed, Nina replied. And the ones that can't? You make people comfortable while they heal on their own. Victor considered that answer longer than necessary. There is wisdom in practical thinking, he said. There is safety in it, Nina corrected. Outside, a second vehicle slowed briefly before continuing down the street. The man in the overcoat acknowledged something through a nearly imperceptible nod. Victor rose from his seat, finishing the coffee with measured calm. I may return, he said. You may, Nina answered. No obligation, he added. There never was, she replied. Victor paused before leaving. Nina, last night you asked who caused the injuries. Yes. The answer is complicated. Most honest answers are, she said. But I appreciated the question, he continued. Few people ask without expecting advantage. I asked because someone was hurt. Nina replied simply. Victor inclined his head once more and turned toward the door. The man in the overcoat opened it before he reached for the handle, another subtle indication of the world Victor inhabited. Nina watched only briefly before returning to her tasks. She placed the unused envelope beneath the counter without examining its contents. Professional boundaries protected more than reputations. They protected peace of mind. Yet as the evening continued, she sensed that the calm rhythm of her life had already begun to shift. Some encounters did not announce themselves loudly. They arrived quietly, asked a simple question, and left behind the possibility that justice, loyalty, and danger often traveled together. Nina did not yet know what role she would play in Victor Moretti's complicated world, but she understood one truth clearly. Whatever had bruised that man's face had not finished shaping the future that now, unexpectedly, included her. Victor did not return the following night, nor the night after that. The lounge resumed its familiar rhythm, the predictable comfort of repetition settling back into place, like a well-worn coat. Nina told herself the brief disruption had passed. Customers came, conversations unfolded, tips were counted, and the quiet structure of ordinary life continued its steady pace. Still, the memory of Victor Moretti lingered somewhere beneath her concentration, not as distraction, but as unfinished context. Some encounters did not feel complete when they ended. They felt paused. Thursday evening brought a heavier crowd than usual. A small group of attorneys gathered near the center tables, discussing a recent case involving corporate fraud, their voices measured but firm as they debated whether the legal system still favored those who could afford to manipulate its complexity. Nina moved efficiently between orders, listening only enough to anticipate when glasses would empty. She had learned that observation, when used respectfully, improved service without intruding on privacy. At 8:30, the bell above the door chimed again. Victor entered alone this time. He wore a dark navy coat, understated yet unmistakably expensive, the lines clean and precise. The bruising along his jaw had faded slightly, though a faint shadow remained visible beneath the soft lighting. He appeared rested, but not relaxed. The tension in his shoulders suggested a man who had resolved one problem only to encounter another. Nina acknowledged him with a small nod as he approached the bar. "Coffee again?" she asked. "Yes." He removed his gloves slowly, placing them neatly beside the coaster she set before him. The simple gesture reflected discipline. Men accustomed to chaos often controlled small details carefully. "You didn't come back yesterday," Nina said as she poured. "I was occupied." "That sounds like an explanation without information." Victor allowed a faint trace of amusement. "Information can be expensive." "I don't charge for listening," Nina replied. "That is precisely why listening is valuable," he said. She placed the mug before him. He waited until she finished wiping the counter before speaking again. "I would like to offer you temporary work," Victor said calmly. Nina did not react immediately. "What kind of work?" "Private medical assistance." "I'm not licensed." "You are trained." "There is a difference." "There is?" he agreed. She studied him carefully. "Why me?" "Because you did not ask my name before helping me." "That doesn't answer the question." "It does," he replied quietly. Nina considered the proposal. "I don't work in private homes," she said. "This would not be a private home." "Then what would it be?" "A temporary arrangement," Victor said. "That still doesn't explain why you need assistance." Victor paused briefly, choosing words with precision. "There are circumstances requiring discretion." "That sounds like legal trouble." "It is not illegal to recover from injury. It depends how the injury happened," Nina answered. Victor accepted the point with a small nod. "You are direct." "It saves time." He reached into his coat pocket and removed a slim folder, placing it on the counter but not opening it. "You would be compensated fairly. I don't take jobs without understanding expectations." "Reasonable," he acknowledged. "I would require your presence only evenings for several days." Nina crossed her arms lightly. "I work evenings." "I am aware. You've done research." "I prefer preparation." "What exactly would I be doing?" "Monitoring recovery, ensuring medication is taken correctly, observing symptoms." "That sounds like a nurse." "It sounds like someone careful," Victor corrected. "And where would this take place?" "In a secure location." "That sounds worse," Nina said. Victor almost smiled. "It is simply quiet." She studied his face again. "You could hire a licensed nurse." "I could," he agreed. "And?" "They ask questions." "I ask questions. You ask useful questions." Silence lingered for a moment. "You still haven't explained why you were injured," Nina said calmly. Victor's gaze lowered briefly toward the surface of the coffee before returning to her. "Someone I trusted attempted to take control of something that does not belong to him." "That sounds personal." "It is. And dangerous." "Yes." Nina exhaled slowly. "I don't involve myself in conflicts." "I am not asking you to. You just said someone tried to take control of something important. That situation is contained. That's what people say before it becomes complicated." Victor acknowledged the truth of that statement with a slight tilt of his head. "You would be protected." "I don't want protection," Nina said. "I want normal." "Normal is often temporary," he replied. "That may be true, but I still choose it." Victor did not argue. Instead, he said quietly, "Your skills deserve better compensation than this lounge provides. My skills pay my rent. And limit your future. My future is my responsibility." Victor regarded her with thoughtful patience. "You studied nursing for a reason." "I studied because I wanted stability. This could provide that. It could also take it away." Victor rested one hand lightly on the folder. "I am offering employment, not obligation. And if I decline, then nothing changes." Nina considered the honesty in his tone. "What would I need to sign?" "Nothing." "That is unusual." "Trust is unusual." "That is not reassuring." Victor nodded once. "You may take time to consider." "I will," Nina replied. He did not push further. Instead, he finished the coffee slowly, leaving payment beside the cup. Before standing, he spoke again. "You once said patterns repeat unless someone changes them." "I remember. This is an opportunity to change one." Nina met his gaze steadily. "Change is not always improvement." "No," he agreed, "but sometimes it is necessary." Victor placed the folder gently closer to her. "Inside you will find a schedule and contact number." "You said there was no phone number." "There was not. And now there is?" Yes, that suggests urgency. It suggests importance. Nina did not open the folder immediately. Victor stood. If you decide against it, simply discard the information. That seems careless. I trust your judgment. Trust again. He left without further explanation. Nina waited several minutes before touching the folder. Inside, the paperwork remained minimal. An address in Manhattan. A time. A simple note. Temporary medical supervision requested. Confidential environment. Professional discretion appreciated. Compensation listed at an amount significantly higher than her weekly earnings. Nina closed the folder carefully. Through the window, the city continued moving without concern for individual choices. She wiped the counter slowly, considering practical realities. Rent increases, insurance payments, the quiet pressure of responsibilities carried alone. Her mother had once told her that opportunity rarely arrived looking safe. Sometimes it looked complicated. Sometimes it looked inconvenient. Sometimes it looked like risk. Nina placed the folder back into the drawer beneath the register. She did not decide immediately, but she did not throw it away. That alone suggested the balance of her carefully controlled life had already begun to shift. Victor did not contact Nina the next day, and she told herself that the silence simplified everything. She completed her shift as usual, wiped the same polished surfaces, refilled the same jars of garnishes, and greeted the same patrons who preferred consistency over novelty. Routine had always been her form of stability. Still, the folder inside the drawer beneath the register seemed heavier than paper should feel. Every time she opened the drawer to retrieve change, she became aware of its presence. Opportunity, when it appeared unexpectedly, rarely allowed itself to be ignored completely. Friday evening brought colder air and a stronger wind that rattled lightly against the windows. A retired school principal sat at the bar, speaking about how discipline had changed over decades, how respect had become negotiable in ways that once seemed unthinkable. Nina listened politely while preparing tea, appreciating the calm cadence of someone who had lived long enough to measure life through patterns rather than surprises. Experience, she believed, gave older people the ability to recognize consequences earlier. By 9 o'clock, the crowd thinned, leaving only a quiet couple sharing dessert and the low hum of music drifting through the room. Nina closed the register briefly to count bills, ensuring accuracy before the late hour slowed her attention. Her fingers moved automatically, practiced from repetition, numbers balanced, receipts aligned, order maintained. Her phone vibrated softly in her apron pocket, a rare interruption during working hours. She stepped aside to glance at the screen. The message displayed an unfamiliar number, but contained only one sentence. I will be nearby for 1 hour. No obligation. No name appeared, but she did not need one. She returned the phone to her pocket and finished organizing the receipts before allowing herself to consider the message. The directness mirrored Victor's manner of speaking. No persuasion, no pressure, only the presentation of possibility. At 9:35, the bell above the door chimed. Victor entered alone, carrying no visible sign of urgency, yet the careful awareness in his posture suggested ongoing caution. His suit was charcoal gray, simple and precise, accompanied by a dark wool coat suitable for the colder air. The bruise along his jaw had faded further but had not disappeared completely. Nina recognized the subtle stiffness in the way he held his shoulders. Recovery was progressing, but not complete. You received the message, he said. I did, she replied. May I sit? You're a customer, she said calmly. That implies I must order something. You usually do. Coffee again. She prepared it without comment. The silence between them felt more intentional now, less uncertain than during previous meetings. Familiarity did not yet exist, but mutual understanding had begun forming. You have not declined, Victor observed. I have not accepted, Nina answered. That is also information. She placed the mug before him. I have questions. I expected that. You said discretion would be required. Yes. That usually means risk. Controlled risk. Risk rarely stays controlled. Victor acknowledged the truth with a slight nod. You would not be asked to do anything illegal. That is a narrow promise. It is a precise one. Nina leaned lightly against the counter. You were injured because of this situation. Yes. And now you are asking me to become involved. To assist recovery. That sounds selective. It is. Why not a hospital? Records create visibility. You want invisibility. I want time. Nina studied him carefully. You said someone betrayed you. Yes. And they are still free? For the moment. That means the situation is ongoing. Victor did not deny it. It means the situation is being resolved. That is not the same thing. No, he agreed. Where would I be working? A secured residence. In Manhattan. Yes. With security staff. Yes. That suggests serious threat. That suggests preparation. Preparation for what? For avoiding escalation. Nina exhaled slowly. My mother used to say that people with complicated lives often pretend everything is temporary. Your mother sounds perceptive. She was cautious. Caution preserves survival. So does distance, Nina replied. Victor considered that carefully. You would have full freedom to leave at any time. People always say that. In this case, it is true. You would not pressure me to stay? No. You would not require additional responsibilities beyond medical observation? No. You would not ask me to conceal criminal activity? No. Nina paused. You understand why I must ask these questions. I respect that you do. He placed a small envelope on the counter again. This is not payment in advance, he clarified. It is documentation of compensation terms. Nina did not open it yet. Why does this matter to you personally? She asked. Victor's gaze remained steady. Because the person responsible for my injuries believed control could be taken through force. And I prefer solutions that prevent repetition. That sounds strategic. It is. You are not simply recovering, Nina said quietly. You are preparing. Yes. For conflict. For resolution. Nina observed the precision of his language. You speak carefully. I choose accuracy. That usually means you are used to negotiation. Victor gave a faint smile. Negotiation is often preferable to violence. But not always possible. No. The older couple at the far table stood to leave, thanking Nina warmly as they passed. The woman complimented the calm atmosphere, saying it reminded her of evenings from decades earlier when conversation mattered more than noise. Nina thanked her politely, appreciating the simple reassurance that consistency still held value in a rapidly changing world. When the door closed again, the room grew quiet. Nina finally opened the envelope. Inside, a printed agreement described temporary employment as a private medical assistant for a period of 7 days, renewable only with her consent. Compensation exceeded her monthly rent by a significant margin. Transportation would be provided. Work hours limited to evenings. Everything appeared straightforward, almost too straightforward. This is generous, she said. It is fair. It is more than fair. It reflects urgency. Nina folded the paper again. If I agree, I maintain independence. Yes. I am not an employee beyond medical supervision. Yes. I leave immediately if I feel unsafe. Yes. You do not interfere with my other employment. Yes. She studied him one final moment. You still haven't told me what you actually do. Victor met her gaze without hesitation. I manage risk. That sounds vague. It is intentionally broad. Nina considered the answer. I can work 3 evenings, she said finally. Victor nodded once. That is acceptable. If the environment feels wrong, I stop immediately. Understood. If anything illegal occurs in my presence, I leave. That will not be necessary. If anyone attempts to involve me in conflict, I refuse. You will not be asked. Nina extended her hand. 3 evenings. Victor shook her hand once, firm but respectful. 3 evenings. Outside, the wind moved steadily along the street, carrying the distant hum of traffic through the narrow corridor of buildings. Change rarely arrived dramatically. It entered quietly, disguised as practical decision-making. As Nina returned the agreement to the envelope, she felt the familiar balance of caution and necessity adjusting slightly within her mind. Responsibility had always guided her choices. Now responsibility suggested that remaining still might not always guarantee safety. Victor finished the coffee and stood. A car will arrive tomorrow at 6:30, he said. That is early, Nina replied. Preparation takes time. Preparation for recovery, she corrected. Yes, he said. For recovery. He left without further discussion. Nina watched the door close gently behind him, aware that something significant had shifted, not because of persuasion, but because she had chosen movement instead of avoidance. For better or worse, the pattern of her life had begun to change. The car arrived at exactly 6:30, neither early nor late, as though time itself had been instructed to follow a schedule. Nina noticed it immediately through the front window of her apartment building. A black sedan parked neatly along the curb, engine idling quietly. The vehicle did not draw attention with flashy design or unnecessary noise. It communicated purpose through restraint. She had expected something expensive. She had not expected something disciplined. She checked the small medical kit she had prepared the night before. Digital thermometer, blood pressure cuff, antiseptic wipes, basic bandaging materials, anti-inflammatory medication, notebook for observations. Nothing complicated. Only practical tools that allowed her to rely on skill rather than assumption. She dressed simply, choosing neutral colors that did not invite questions. Professional, understated, appropriate for temporary work. Her mother had always said that clothing should support intention, not distract from it. The driver exited the vehicle as she approached the curb. He appeared in his 50s, posture upright, expression neutral but not unfriendly. He opened the rear door without speaking, a gesture practiced through repetition. "Miss Harper," he said respectfully. "Nina is fine," she replied. "Yes, ma'am." She noticed the habit of formality common among people who had spent years in structured environments. Military or private security, she guessed. The interior of the car was quiet, the seats comfortable but not ostentatious. Subtle details suggested quality chosen for longevity rather than display. The city moved steadily outside the window as they crossed the Williamsburg Bridge into Manhattan, early traffic forming a slow pattern of movement that reflected both urgency and routine. People walked with coffee cups in hand, briefcases carried close to the body, eyes focused on schedules invisible to everyone except themselves. Nina observed without asking questions. Information often revealed itself naturally when patience was applied. They stopped in front of a limestone building positioned on a street lined with older architecture, the kind preserved through careful maintenance rather than renovation. The entrance carried no obvious signage. Privacy did not require secrecy when discretion was expected. The driver escorted her inside and through a quiet lobby where polished stone floors reflected soft morning light. A security desk stood near the elevators, staffed by a man who acknowledged her presence with a respectful nod but did not request identification. Her name had already been provided. Preparation again. The elevator opened onto a private floor. The hallway smelled faintly of cedar and clean air, the kind produced by systems designed to regulate comfort without drawing attention to themselves. Victor stood near the window when she entered. He wore a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled once at the forearm, dark trousers pressed sharply enough to suggest habit rather than effort. Without the formality of a suit jacket, he appeared less distant, though the quiet authority remained unmistakable. "You arrived precisely on time," he said. "The driver ensured that," Nina replied. Victor gestured toward a seating area near a low table where medical supplies had already been arranged with careful order. "You anticipated what might be required," she observed. "I prefer preparation. That seems consistent." She placed her own kit beside the materials already present, comparing inventory efficiently. "You've been taking anti-inflammatory medication," she said. "Yes." "Any dizziness?" "No." "Headaches?" "Occasionally." "Vision changes?" "No." "Sleep?" "Improving." Nina examined the fading bruising along his jaw and temple, careful to maintain professional focus. "Pain level?" "Manageable." "That is not a number." "4." "Yesterday?" "6." "Progress," she noted. Victor watched her work without interruption. She moved with quiet confidence, neither hesitant nor overly assertive. Competence often appeared calm rather than impressive. "Your breathing is shallow," she said after a moment. "Old habit." "Stress habit," she corrected. "Yes." "Try deeper inhalation." Victor followed the instruction without resistance. "Better," she said. "You are efficient. You are cooperative." "That is also unusual." "I prefer patients who listen." "I am not a patient." "You are injured." Victor accepted the correction with a slight nod. "Temporary condition," he said. "Most conditions are," Nina replied. A man entered quietly from the adjacent hallway, dressed in a dark suit that suggested security responsibilities without uniform identification. He paused near the doorway, waiting for acknowledgement. "Later," Victor said calmly. The man nodded once and withdrew without speaking. Nina pretended not to notice, but registered the detail carefully. "You were attacked recently," she said after a moment. "Yes." Physical altercation? Yes. Multiple individuals? Yes. Medical treatment afterward? No. Why not? Timing. That usually means urgency. Yes. Nina made a brief note in her notebook. You should have imaging performed, she said. That is being arranged privately. Good. She finished checking vital signs and replaced the equipment carefully. For now, rest remains important. I have responsibilities, Victor said. Responsibilities continue whether injured or not, Nina replied. Recovery shortens long-term complications. You speak as if time is controllable. Time is influenced by decisions. Victor regarded her thoughtfully. You approach problems directly. It prevents confusion. You do not appear intimidated by unfamiliar environments. I focus on tasks. Does curiosity not distract you? Curiosity creates assumptions. And assumptions create risk, Victor concluded. Yes. He gestured toward a tray placed nearby. Breakfast was prepared earlier. I already ate, Nina replied. Then coffee? That would be acceptable. He poured 2 cups from a simple ceramic pot rather than calling for assistance. Self-sufficiency, she observed. Privacy, he corrected. They sat briefly in silence while the city moved below the windows in steady motion. You may ask one question, Victor said eventually. Only one? One that matters. Nina considered carefully. What happened the night you were injured? Victor did not respond immediately. A disagreement regarding control of financial operations, he said finally. That sounds impersonal. It was not. You trusted the person involved. Yes. And they believed force would change the outcome. Yes. That rarely ends well. No. Nina placed the empty cup on the table. You should expect continued pressure, she said. I do. Then rest becomes strategy. That is why you are here. She closed her notebook. I am here for 3 evenings, she reminded him, and I intend to use them wisely. Nina stood, preparing to leave for the day. Your condition is stable, she said. Continue medication as scheduled. Limit alcohol. Victor gave the faintest suggestion of acknowledgement. That instruction appears consistent. Consistency improves outcomes. She gathered her materials calmly. I will return tomorrow evening. I will ensure the schedule remains uninterrupted, Victor replied. As she approached the elevator, Nina became aware that the quiet environment surrounding Victor was not simply wealth. It was control. Control built through preparation, discipline, and caution. The kind of control people constructed when experience taught them that trust, once broken, required careful rebuilding. For the moment, her role remained limited to observation and medical supervision. Yet she understood something clearly. Victor Moretti did not invite people into his world casually, and whatever conflict had caused those bruises was not yet finished shaping the path ahead. By the second evening, Nina understood that Victor's world functioned on precision. The car arrived at the same time. The same driver opened the door with the same polite nod, and the same quiet efficiency guided every movement inside the building. Consistency, she realized, was not only a habit for people seeking stability. It was also a strategy used by people protecting power. The city felt colder that night, the wind sharper as it moved between the tall buildings of Manhattan. Nina adjusted her coat collar as she stepped from the car, noticing how little attention the building drew despite its location. It did not need to impress anyone. Its value was understood by those who recognized such details. Victor was already in the main sitting area when she entered. A lamp cast warm light across a low table covered with neatly organized documents. Though he closed the folder the moment she appeared, his movements were controlled but not hurried, a man accustomed to interruptions yet careful about what remained visible. You are punctual, he said. I was raised to respect time, Nina replied. Respect for time often reflects respect for responsibility. That depends how responsibility is used, she answered. Victor gave a faint acknowledgement of the point. You look stronger today, she observed as she set her bag beside the chair. Recovery progresses. Any dizziness? No. Headaches? Less frequent. Pain level? 3. Improvement, she noted, checking his blood pressure with quiet efficiency. The numbers confirmed progress. Bruising has reduced significantly, she said, examining the fading discoloration along his jaw. The swelling is almost gone. Time assists healing, Victor replied. Time only helps when injury is not repeated, Nina said. Victor did not respond immediately. She noticed the slight tension returning to his posture. You are expecting difficulty tonight, she said calmly. I am always expecting difficulty, he answered. That is not the same thing. Victor studied her briefly, then spoke with measured clarity. The individual responsible for the previous incident is attempting to negotiate. That sounds optimistic. It is strategic. Negotiations with people who use violence rarely remain polite, Nina said, which is why preparation is necessary. A faint sound from the hallway suggested quiet activity beyond the room. Nina noticed the subtle communication between Victor and the security staff moving outside the door. No raised voices, no visible urgency, only controlled awareness. You trust your team, she observed. I trust structure, Victor corrected. Structure is only as strong as the people maintaining it. Yes. Then trust remains involved. Victor allowed a slight smile. You analyze quickly. I pay attention, Nina replied. She finished recording observations in her notebook. Continue medication tonight, she said. Limit screen time. Rest improves neurological recovery. Victor nodded. You speak as though the body follows rules. It does, Nina answered. People often do not. People complicate recovery, she agreed. Victor leaned slightly against the back of the chair. You once said you preferred solutions. Yes. And this situation presents one? Eventually, she said. You sound confident. I sound realistic. Victor considered the difference. A soft knock sounded at the door before one of the security staff entered briefly, speaking quietly near Victor's shoulder. The conversation lasted only seconds. Nina did not attempt to listen. Victor nodded once. Understood. The man exited again without acknowledging her presence directly, though his posture suggested professional awareness of everyone in the room. You remain calm, Victor said. I am not involved. You are present. That is not the same. Victor regarded her carefully. Presence changes outcomes. Sometimes, Nina agreed. She packed away the medical equipment and adjusted the cuff inside her bag. You have not asked what happens next, Victor said. That is not my role. You are curious. I am careful. You believe distance protects you. Distance protects clarity. Victor stood and walked toward the window overlooking the city. Traffic moved steadily below, headlights forming quiet lines of motion between intersections. Conflict often arrives disguised as opportunity, he said. And opportunity often disguises risk, Nina replied. He turned slightly. You understand the balance. I understand consequences. Victor nodded slowly. That is why I asked you to come. Because I do not belong to your world, she said. Yes. That can change quickly. Yes. And that concerns you, Nina observed. It concerns anyone responsible for decisions. She closed her notebook. Your vital signs remain stable, she said. Continue rest tonight. You may resume normal activity gradually. Victor gave a brief nod. Your professionalism is appreciated. I am doing temporary work. You are doing necessary work. She hesitated briefly. You should consider imaging follow-up within the week. It is scheduled. Good. Victor moved toward the table, pouring water into 2 glasses. You avoid alcohol, he said. It interferes with judgment. Sometimes judgment benefits from distance. Distance should not require intoxication, Nina replied. Victor gave the faintest trace of amusement. You are consistent. Consistency prevents avoidable mistakes. He handed her the glass. A reasonable philosophy. Silence settled comfortably between them for a moment, not empty but thoughtful. Do you regret accepting this work? Victor asked. No. You answered quickly. I made the decision carefully. And if complications arise, I reassess. Victor inclined his head slightly. You are prepared for adjustment. I am prepared for reality. He studied her expression as though measuring something beyond words. You are not easily influenced. I listen, Nina said. Then I decide. Victor appeared to accept that answer. The evening passed without interruption. No raised voices, no visible conflict, only quiet movement in adjacent rooms and the steady rhythm of a world operating beneath ordinary visibility. When Nina prepared to leave, Victor walked with her toward the elevator. The car will return tomorrow, he said. One more evening, she reminded him. Yes, recovery should continue without difficulty. I will follow instructions. That improves results, Nina said. As the elevator doors closed, she felt the familiar balance of caution and practicality settle again within her thoughts. The environment surrounding Victor remained controlled, deliberate, and carefully structured. Yet beneath the calm surface, she sensed movement. decisions forming, pressure building, the kind of tension that preceded change. For now, her role remained limited, but instinct told her that stability, once disrupted, rarely returned unchanged. The third evening began with a sense of quiet transition. Nina felt it before she even left her apartment. In the subtle awareness that temporary arrangements often revealed their true purpose near the end, she dressed with the same practical care as the previous nights, choosing comfort over impression, professionalism over curiosity. Outside, Manhattan carried the cool clarity of early autumn, the kind of evening when people walked faster not from urgency but from habit formed over decades of responsibility. The car arrived precisely at 6:30 again. The driver greeted her with the same respectful nod, though tonight there was a faint tension in his posture, almost imperceptible but present enough for someone attentive to notice. Nina had learned long ago that tension often appeared in small details first: tighter grip on a steering wheel, shorter pauses between breaths, fewer unnecessary words. Traffic moved slowly across the bridge, headlights stretching across the dark water like narrow paths of gold. Nina watched the reflections without allowing speculation to distract her. Temporary work required temporary focus. She reminded herself of that as the car turned toward the familiar building entrance. Inside, the atmosphere remained controlled, yet something had shifted. The quiet staff moved with slightly increased alertness. Conversations shorter. Footsteps more deliberate. No visible alarm, but readiness existed just beneath the surface. Victor stood near the long window when she entered, one hand resting lightly on the back of a chair as though he had paused mid-thought. The bruise along his jaw had faded significantly, leaving only a faint discoloration visible in certain light. Physically, he appeared almost fully recovered. Emotionally, she sensed continued calculation. "You are early," he said. 6:30, Nina replied. "Consistent." That was the agreement. Victor nodded once. "Tonight should conclude our arrangement," he said. "That depends on your condition," Nina answered. "Medically, I am stable. Then tonight confirms progress." She set her bag down and began her routine evaluation. Blood pressure normal. Pulse steady. No sign of neurological complication. She checked the reflex response in his pupils using the small pen light from her kit. "Any headaches today?" "Minimal." "Vision stable?" "Yes." "Sleep?" "Improved." "Good," she said. Victor watched her work with quiet attention. "You treat the process seriously," he observed. "Consistency prevents regression," she replied. "Most people stop being careful once improvement begins. That is usually when mistakes happen." Victor considered that. Wise approach. Nina made final notes in her small notebook. "You are recovering well," she said. "Within several days, normal activity should present no medical concern." "That is useful information," Victor replied. She closed the notebook but did not yet put it away. "However," she added calmly, "stress affects recovery speed." Victor's expression remained neutral. "Stress is difficult to eliminate. It can be managed." "How would you suggest managing it?" he asked. "Reduce unnecessary conflict." Victor gave a faint smile that did not fully reach his eyes. "Conflict is rarely unnecessary. That depends on priorities. And yours are stability," he said. "Yes." "And safety?" "Yes." Victor walked slowly toward the window again, observing the city below as dusk deepened into evening. "The individual who caused the incident has made contact again," he said. "That confirms ongoing risk," Nina replied. "It confirms unfinished negotiation. Negotiations involving violence rarely remain stable. That depends on leverage." Nina considered that word carefully. "You believe you have leverage?" "I believe preparation improves outcome." "That is not the same." Victor did not disagree. A quiet knock sounded at the door before one of the security staff entered briefly, speaking in a tone low enough to preserve privacy. Victor listened without interrupting, then gave a short instruction. The man left immediately. Nina observed the exchange without appearing to watch. "You trust your environment," she said. "I trust the systems in place," Victor answered. "Systems depend on people." "Yes. And people make mistakes." "They do." Nina packed away the blood pressure cuff. "You should avoid physical confrontation until recovery is complete," she said. Victor's expression revealed a trace of irony. "I will consider that advice." "You should follow it," she corrected. Victor inclined his head slightly. "Your directness remains consistent." Clarity prevents misunderstanding. A moment passed in thoughtful quiet. You once said patterns repeat unless someone changes them, Victor said. I remember. Sometimes change requires uncomfortable decisions. Change always requires them. Nina replied. Victor studied her carefully. You do not fear discomfort. I fear consequences more than discomfort. That is a practical distinction. It is realistic. Victor reached for a glass of water, pouring slowly. I am aware that your involvement here was limited, he said. And temporary, she added. Yes, you fulfilled your responsibility precisely. That was the agreement. He paused briefly. You entered an unfamiliar environment without attempting to control it. That was intentional. Most people attempt influence. I prefer understanding. Victor nodded once. Understanding often leads to influence. Only if influence is necessary. Is it ever unnecessary? He asked. Yes, Nina said calmly. Sometimes presence alone changes outcomes. Victor seemed to consider that idea more seriously than her previous observations. Outside, the sky darkened fully, the city lights below forming patterns that reflected order despite complexity. After tonight, Nina said, you should maintain consistent sleep schedule. That may be difficult. Recovery benefits from discipline. Discipline is not unfamiliar to me. Then apply it. Victor gave a faint nod. You have offered practical value, he said. I provided medical observation. You provided perspective. That was not part of the agreement. Sometimes value extends beyond agreement. Nina closed her bag. Your recovery no longer requires supervision, she said. Follow the medication schedule for 3 additional days. Limit alcohol. Monitor any recurring symptoms. Victor acknowledged each instruction. Yes. She stood, preparing to leave. This concludes my responsibility. Victor walked with her toward the elevator. You approached this situation with restraint, he said. I approached it with boundaries. Boundaries create clarity. They prevent confusion. Victor paused briefly before the elevator doors opened. If circumstances change, he said, you may receive communication. That depends on circumstances, Nina replied. Yes. The elevator descended smoothly toward the lobby. As she stepped outside, the evening air felt sharper than before, though the city remained unchanged in appearance. Cars moved steadily. People continued walking with familiar urgency. Life rarely paused simply because individual decisions carried weight. Nina understood something clearly as she walked toward the waiting car. Temporary roles sometimes created permanent consequences, not because of danger, but because perspective, once expanded, rarely returned to its previous size. Whatever negotiation Victor faced had not yet concluded, and although her involvement had been limited, the quiet awareness remained that this story had not fully reached its final chapter. Nina expected the following evening to return to normal, yet normal did not arrive as quickly as routine suggested it should. The lounge felt familiar again, the polished bar reflecting soft amber light, the quiet jazz melodies filling the spaces between conversations. Still, something within her attention had changed. Experience often left subtle traces long after the moment itself had passed. She greeted regular customers with the same calm professionalism, listening to familiar stories about retirement plans, grandchildren, and the quiet satisfaction of predictable days. Stability remained comforting, yet she now recognized how fragile stability could be when placed beside power. 3 days had passed since her final visit to Victor's residence. She had not received further communication, and she respected the absence of obligation implied by their agreement. Temporary work had concluded. Responsibility had ended. Life continued. Yet on a quiet Tuesday evening, just as Nina finished aligning receipts inside the register, the bell above the lounge door chimed with the soft tone she now recognized instantly. She did not react immediately. Professional composure remained intact. Still, when she looked up, Victor Moretti stood just inside the doorway, no security visible beside him this time. He wore a dark coat, appropriate for the cooling autumn weather. His posture composed, his expression calm in a way that suggested resolution rather than tension. The faint discoloration that had once marked his jaw had nearly disappeared. The physical evidence of conflict had faded. Something deeper, however, appeared steadier than before. "Good evening," he said. "Good evening," Nina replied. "Coffee?" she asked. Yes. She prepared the cup without unnecessary conversation, placing it before him with the same quiet efficiency she offered every customer. Victor sat at the same place he had chosen the first night, though tonight his movements appeared lighter, less guarded. "You have recovered," Nina said. "Yes. No complication?" "None." "That is good." Victor held the coffee briefly before speaking again. "The situation requiring discretion has concluded." "That sounds final." "It is sufficiently resolved." "That usually means a compromise," Nina said. "It means accountability," Victor replied calmly. Nina did not ask for details. She understood that information often carried weight beyond its usefulness. The individual responsible for the previous conflict attempted to secure control through intimidation. Victor continued. "Evidence of financial misconduct was presented to the appropriate authorities. That suggests legal consequences." "Yes. That avoids escalation." "That avoids repetition," Victor corrected. Nina inclined her head slightly. "Justice tends to be more stable when documented." "That is precisely the intention." Silence settled comfortably between them, the quiet rhythm of the lounge continuing around them. A retired engineer seated nearby discussed the importance of maintenance schedules with his friend, insisting that small adjustments prevented large failures. Nina could not help noticing the similarity in principle. "You followed medical guidance carefully," she said. "I followed practical guidance. Practical often becomes effective." Victor allowed a faint smile. "You influenced outcome more than you realize." "I provided temporary care," Nina replied. "You provided clarity," he said. "Clarity is often underestimated. Clarity is often avoided," Victor added. She wiped the counter slowly, allowing the conversation to progress without urgency. "You said once that people complicate recovery," he said. "They do. Conflict complicates recovery as well." "Yes. Yet avoidance sometimes creates larger conflict later. That depends whether avoidance delays responsibility." Victor nodded slightly. "You speak with balance." "I speak from observation. You did not attempt to involve yourself beyond your responsibility. That was intentional. Many people would have attempted advantage." "Advantage complicates independence," Nina said. Victor finished the coffee. "The arrangement we discussed previously has changed," he said. "I assumed it had. I no longer require medical supervision." "That is positive. However," he continued, "an opportunity exists if you wish to consider it." Nina did not immediately respond. "What kind of opportunity?" "A legitimate foundation supporting victims of financial exploitation and domestic coercion is being expanded." "That sounds specific." "It is personnel." "You want me involved?" "I would value your perspective. I am not qualified to manage foundations." "You are qualified to recognize harm," Victor replied. "That is not the same. It is more important." Nina considered the proposal carefully. "What would the role involve?" "Advisory capacity," Victor said. "Ensuring assistance programs remain practical rather than theoretical." "That sounds long-term." "It is flexible. I prefer independence." "You would maintain it." "I prefer transparency." "You would have it." Nina remained silent briefly, allowing the idea to settle without pressure. "You once said justice should prevent repetition," she said. "Yes. Prevention requires consistency." "Yes. That requires commitment." Victor inclined his head. "It does." Nina placed the clean cloth beside the register. "I will consider it," she said. "That is sufficient." Victor stood, placing payment beside the empty cup. "You asked a simple question the night we met," he said. "Yes. You asked who caused the injury." "I remember." "Most people would not have asked. Most people avoid uncomfortable truths." "That question altered a decision. I asked because someone was hurt," Nina replied. Victor paused briefly before speaking again. "Sometimes justice begins with a question asked without fear." Nina did not respond immediately. Outside, the city continued its endless motion, unaware that quiet decisions inside modest rooms often influenced outcomes far beyond their size. Victor moved toward the door but stopped briefly. "You chose restraint rather than curiosity," he said. "Restraint protects judgment," Nina answered, "and judgment protects freedom." "Yes." He inclined his head once more before stepping outside into the cool evening air. Nina watched the door close gently behind him, aware that not all endings required dramatic resolution. Some conclusions arrived quietly, leaving behind the subtle understanding that small acts of integrity often created consequences larger than expected. She returned to the register and completed her routine closing tasks, aligning receipts, turning off unnecessary lights, ensuring everything remained in order for the next day. Stability, she knew, did not mean life remained unchanged. It meant change could occur without destroying balance. The question she had asked that first night remained simple. Who did this to you? Yet the answer had traveled far beyond bruises. It had reached responsibility, accountability, and the quiet possibility that justice, when chosen carefully, did not require noise to be real. For Nina Harper, life returned to routine, but not to ignorance. For Victor Moretti, power remained, and somewhere between caution and courage, two strangers had reminded each other that dignity, once defended, rarely disappears again. The story reminds us that true strength is not always found in power, wealth, or control, but in the quiet courage to choose what is right when no one is watching. Nina did not try to change Victor's world, nor did she allow his world to change who she was. She simply acted with dignity, compassion, and clear boundaries. In return, Victor learned that justice is not built on fear, but on responsibility and accountability. The lesson for the audience is simple yet profound. Sometimes a single honest question, asked without selfish intent, can interrupt cycles of harm and create space for real change. Integrity may seem small in the moment, but over time, it becomes the foundation for trust, healing, and a life that does not depend on power to feel secure. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real, and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.